Hey folks, this is Sean with the CubeCast. Thank you so much for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to give you guys an update on this breaking news about the Jeffrey Epstein situation. A lot of you are familiar with Project Veritas, which is kind of an investigative journalist company / organization that's headed up by James O'Keefe. He's done some really good work in the past uncovering some corruption and some of these corporations and in our political system. Anyway, he tweeted a really crazy tweet out earlier that he was going to be dropping this undercover video this morning at 9 a.m. That he was given by some insider that approached him. And it's basically it's an undercover, it's a secret recording of somebody high level. I'm not sure if it's in the NYPD, if it's in the correctional system, if it's an actual someone in the intel agency, I don't know, but that has some information on Jeffrey Epstein's death. And as many of you may already know, Jeffrey Epstein was being held in a detention facility awaiting charges on child sex trafficking / prostitution, generally just being a scumbag. The guy's been around for a long time. He's been hobnobbing with all these power brokers around the world, corporate executives, global leaders, politicians, real good friends with the Clintons, and a lot of other people in high places and high influence in this country and around the globe. So obviously the guy had tons of dirt on people. He probably, I would imagine that Epstein Island there was a honeypot that was probably, he was probably being blackmailed or extorted by one of the three-letter agencies into giving them dirt on politicians or global leaders that they wanted to control. Of course, if you're in the CIA, you were not going to pass up an opportunity to bring Jeffrey Epstein into your orbit and compromise him. So I'm sure they had cameras set up on this island, and I'm sure that Jeffrey had plenty of video of people that were in power and of high influence doing really shady shit with underage girls / boys, gay prostitutes, etc., etc. And I'm sure the intel agencies exploited Jeffrey's situation on that island. Of course, why wouldn't they? So there's a lot of people that wanted him dead. And no one, anyone with a brain knows that he didn't commit suicide. Millions of people around the world predicted that he was going to die at some point before he was ever allowed to talk. And he did. So that should prove to you right there that how corrupt the system is when you have people predicting his death before it even happened under mysterious circumstances, which is exactly what happened. They said he jumped off the top bunk of his bed and hung himself, which is a load of crap. They had this famous forensic pathologist, whatever guy. His name's Baden, I think, and he was on Fox News the other day. He's looked at thousands and thousands of these autopsy reports over the course of his career. He's highly respected in his field. Basically, what he does is, he looks at a body, does this report, and he basically figures out how people were killed. So this guy's been doing this a long time. He said there's absolutely no way that this guy killed himself, that his wounds were consistent with a murder, all the broken bones in his neck and stuff like that. So that makes sense. I'm sure you've got people that work in the correctional system. Not all of them, but many of them are shady characters. That's how a lot of the drugs get into these facilities and the paraphernalia. They're actually brought in by the guards, and they're paid by people outside to bring this stuff in. So it's not that hard to bribe a prison guard or to have them look the other way. And if you had an intel agency that was interested in this guy for national security reasons, because he was about to spill the beans on some seriously powerful people and maybe shift the balance of power in certain places, it's very easy to get people out of these areas in these correctional facilities so that they can bring their people in, kill him, and then slip their people out. As we know, when he was killed, all these cameras were malfunctioning. The guards weren't checking on him, of course, like they should have been. So it was all mysterious circumstances. And so, I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Like I said, most people predicted that he was never going to see the light of day after he entered that detention facility, and that he was not going to be able to spill the beans on a bunch of people, and guess what? He didn't. So we all knew that was going to happen. So anyway, I'm not sure about this Project Veritas video. James O'Keefe has overhyped stuff in the past. I'm not saying he hasn't done some great work, but sometimes the build-up, when we finally got the final product, it kind of wasn't as shocking as it was kind of made out to be. But this, I'm not saying that that's the case here. I'm hoping that he's got some high-level people talking about the fact that they knew who did this to Epstein, or at least what happened, something about the cover-up. That would be great. So 9 o'clock, James O'Keefe is going to release this video, and I want to bring you over here to this tweet that he's been on Twitter basically all day, and a lot of other people have picked up on this. This hashtag Epstein CoverUp is trending on Twitter now. Everybody's really excited to see what he's got. But anyway, James O'Keefe, if you see down there at the bottom, he tweeted this out earlier, and he said, "Dead man switch activated." Okay, and what happened, I was watching Alex Jones earlier today, and James O'Keefe actually called into the show and spoke with Alex and confirmed that he had been, his life had been threatened, that he was receiving death threats, and he was very cryptic about who was threatening him, but he kind of alluded to the fact that it was this conservative Inc., and I'm not sure what conservative Inc. means. Alex kind of went into it a little bit, something to do maybe with like Barney Frank. This is many years ago at some organization, and I don't know what this is all about. I'll have to research it a little bit more. I didn't have time tonight to do that. But this guy right here, the Zach Voorhees, he tweeted out after James O'Keefe put out the Dead Man Switch tweet. He said, "Pray for the safety of James O'Keefe. Death threat issued from Conservative Inc. against James O'Keefe. James responds by activating a dead man switch, which will release Epstein's file in the event of his death. James, we support you." Retweet, So it doesn't matter if they knock off James O'Keefe at this point. I would imagine that this video is going to come out. If they did knock off James O'Keefe at some point between now and 9 a.m. Tomorrow morning, the whole world is going to pretty much know that he did have some shit on these people that are covering up for Epstein, which would just make them look even more guilty. So they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. All these this pedophile satanic ring that's kind of infested these world governments around the globe. They've got the media on their side who throws him tons of shade. So whatever James O'Keefe releases, you're of course you're going to have CNN, MSNBC, the BBC, and all these other corporations that are basically arms of intel agencies and world governments. They're just propaganda machines. This is government-controlled media. A lot of reporters nowadays basically just read government-approved press releases. They don't even do any investigative work anymore. You've got small investigative journalists like James O'Keefe here, Alex Jones, a lot of people I respect on YouTube and stuff, smaller organizations that are actually doing the real journalism now. You're not going to get it out of Fox News. They're almost as bad as CNN. They're not as bad. The only reason they give the president any positive coverage is just because out of necessity. Somebody's got to do it. So if you've got 60 million people that voted for the guy, so they're going to turn off Fox News if they just bash him all day, and they know that. But they're still propaganda machines. Their polls are bullshit, and a lot of them are never Trumpers that are just kind of gritting their teeth until they get this guy out, so they can get back to the business of being corrupt and evil, like they were doing when Obama, Clinton, and the Bushes were reigning. So anyway, if you want to know what these people really are up to, I'm not going to get super into the satanic stuff, but a lot of people are like, oh my God, sex trafficking and these elites and these politicians, is that true? I don't want to believe this about my own government. This shit right here that you're looking up at the screen, this is kind of an illustration from a ceremony that goes on at the Bohemian Grove. This is a private resort in California. I don't know if they utilize this place as much anymore now that we have drones and stuff that can actually fly over the place, and some people have exposed this place for what it was, and they may have moved operations maybe a little bit more underground. But for many, many years before our current time. The Bohemian Grove was a private resort that a bunch of power brokers, corporate executives, politicians, world leaders, you name it, would go, and they would participate in this ceremony right here, where they would. It's a satanic ceremony right here. What they do is they worship this owl named Moloch, and they participate in a ceremony called the cremation of care. And if you really think about the title, the name that they've given this ceremony, the cremation of care. The reason they're calling it is the cremation of care is because this was this old boys club, and if you wanted to be a U.S. president or a VP or even if you wanted to be a power broker in kind of this global cabal of reptiles, you were put on the guest list at the Bohemian Grove. And they would get you in there. They would have you participate in this ceremony. It's like a devil worshiping ceremony. They actually burn the effigy of a human being at the end. And basically the ceremony represents the cremation of care. So basically what you're doing is you're shedding your empathy for other humans, because now you've been brought into this cabal of reptiles, and they don't want you to be sympathetic to your fellow man anymore. They want you to be willing to engage in evil, which is why they call it the cremation of care, right? This is just an illustration, but this screen right here is an actual photo of the owl. Just so you know, I'm not making up conspiracy theories. This resort has been there in the woods in California for quite some time. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. There's actually, Alex Jones actually went in and got footage of the actual ceremony that was taken place. You can just find it on YouTube. It's not a fake. He like shot it on a camcorder or something. It was a long time ago before we had a lot of this high-tech camera equipment. And it's really spooky. These people are shouting and screeching, and they're burning this owl, and they're worshiping this like dead human, and they're dressed up in robes, and it's super satanic stuff. And those are the people that are running the planet right now. So if you don't think that these global elite pedophile rings are real, and that Jeffrey Epstein actually was trafficking children to politicians and world leaders, you're crazy. This stuff's been going on forever. Most people don't want to think about this stuff. They don't want to believe that their leaders are actually involved in this stuff. They want to think of the world as generally good. They don't want to see it kind of for the evil that it actually is. It's a lot easier to stick your head in the sand because this is going to keep a lot of people up at night. If you really think about it, this has some disturbing implications, right? So anyway, with the Bohemian Grove, what they do, they actually get a lot of the men to dress up in dresses and high heels, and they put on little skits and plays, and it's all really like frat boy shit. But they take pictures of these guys in compromising positions. They've had gay prostitutes in the past that have spilled the beans on the fact that them and their buddies were actually being bussed out to some of these events to have sex with some of these members of Congress and the United States Congress. And if you think that they didn't have CCTV cameras set up around this facility so that they could blackmail these people, you're crazy. That was the whole point of bussing in male prostitutes to men who are otherwise, in their public eye, they're married. These are men with positions of power. They're on the news all day preaching to us about morality and the Constitution and all this stuff, but they're really just a bunch of scumbags. I'm not saying all of them are, but up in the Bohemian Grove was a recruiting ground. If you were going to be a major player on the planet, you're going to be on the guest list at the Bohemian Grove. They're going to get you down there. They're going to find out what kind of evil shit you're into, and they're going to serve it up to you on a platter, and they're going to take a picture of you, and then they own your ass. And that's how these guys are running the show. I would imagine there's some intel agencies involved in this joint. And like I said, I don't know if they use it so much anymore. Now that you have like drones that can like fly over the place and snap pictures of this ceremony, which is really disturbing. I suggest you all look it up on YouTube. Alex Jones took the footage, and it's really disturbing. It's a ton of guys standing around on this lake in front of this owl here, lighting it on fire. chanting shit that makes no sense. It's all super satanic shit. And you wouldn't think that your world leaders and your power brokers were into this stuff, but they absolutely are. So anyway, keep your eyes open for this Epstein revelation. 9 a.m. this morning. I'm hoping that it's something interesting. I'm sure it is. It may not be, super crazy or whatever. I'm hoping it is. It may not be, but either way, it's got people talking. The Twitter sphere is blowing up right now. The hashtag Epstein CoverUp is super trending right now. Everybody's talking about it. And hopefully he's got some guys on camera talking about the knowledge of the fact that this guy for sure was murdered by somebody. And I would imagine it has something to do with a U.S. intel agency that was that was tasked with this kind of evil job of having to go in and wipe this guy out, because they knew that he was about to spill the beans on some pretty powerful people, and they probably just can't have that. Like I said, he wasn't going to be an asset for them anymore. I would imagine he was a CIA asset, and since he was going to be going to prison probably for the rest of his life, he was of no use to them anymore. So there was no reason to bring down the whole organization, which I'm sure he could have done. You gotta understand that his cohort, I don't know her name, but somebody snapped a picture of her at an outdoor cafe, and you can tell that she knew what she was doing, because this is after his death. Okay. This is when she disappeared. This was like his madam. This was the woman that was involved with setting up a lot of his, kind of controlling the girls, bringing new girls in, trafficking a lot of these underage girls to these high-powered clients and whatnot. And they snapped a picture of her sitting in an outdoor cafe with a book. And I don't know the title of the book, but the title of the book made reference to the fact that she was a CIA asset. So if you don't think this stuff is going on, that's exactly what happened here. He was absolutely an asset. If you look at it from the CIA's point of view, there's no way that they were going to let this guy operate without compromising him or bringing him in as an asset with the people that he had access to. He had access to all sorts of powerful people, and sex, when it comes to sex, that's how you get people in compromising situations. So I would imagine that Epstein Island was wired for sound. He probably had cameras in every room, sound in every room, and he probably had dirt on everybody who walked through the door. I mean, I'm sure they held probably, events at some points where nothing was going on, but I'm sure after hours, a lot of people who had visited his island and had sex with underage girls / boys were extremely worried after he got locked up. So we'll see what James O'Keefe here delivers at 9 a.m. this morning, and keep your eyes open because I'm pretty excited to see what it is too. Thanks for watching.